Hello students, today we're doing lesson 6.10, graphing linear equations. Okay, we're just going to jump right into this. As you can see, I have graph paper today, so we're only doing 2 examples, and then I'm going to kind of let your homework help you with learning how to do these, because once you've done your homework, then you can check them in the back of the book to see if you did them right. And you can see kind of once you do them, if you did them right or wrong. Okay, so the first example says graph 2x plus y is greater than 3. So remember up here it says inequalities. So we are doing greater than, less than, stuff like that. Okay, so on this one, what we want to do, because we want to graph it like we would an equation, is we want to get the y by itself. So I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides. And to make it look like a slope-intercept form, I'm going to make sure that the x goes first and then the 3. Okay, so now I'm going to use this problem right here to graph. And it was as easy as that to just change it to slope-intercept form. So over here, I see that I have a slope of -2 and a y-intercept of 3. So I'm going to make sure that my graph goes up to 5. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go down here. Okay, so now that I have my graph, I can graph this because I know slope-intercept form. I know where the y-intercept is. It's at 3. So I'm going to put a point there. Remember, this is the y-axis. So that's where the slope-intercept form is going to be, the y-intercept. And then the slope is -2. But remember, when you have a slope, you have a rise over a run. So -2 would be -2 over 1. And since it's negative, it's going to lean to the left. So I always just go up, even if it's negative. Some books teach you to go down if it's negative and always go to the right. I just like to go up and to the left. So I'm going to go up to 1, 2, and over 1. Okay, and it's good to do a third point. So if you want to, you could go down to 1, 2, and over 1, and there's your third point. Okay, so make sure that it's leaning or going to the left, pointing to the left. And now before I draw my line, we're going to look at this symbol, okay? If it is a greater than or a less than, you're going to have a dotted line. Okay, so when I draw my line here, and remember, I don't have a ruler with my screen, so mine might look a little bit off. You should be using a ruler and yours should look straight. Okay, so see how I drew a dotted line? That means the line is not included in the answer, because this symbol right here does not have an equal sign under it. That means that it is not equal to. So none of those points on the line are equal to. Okay, it says y is greater than, so I'm going to shade above the line. So think about if you were, which side is above the line. This side is the higher point, right? So this is above the line. So I'm going to shade there. In your book, it's not lines like that. It's really shaded. I just can't do that on my iPad. Okay, so all of that is your answer. And this is what I'm looking for, is the graph. This is your answer to the problem, okay? This is just kind of like a secondary thing you have to do in order to make the graph. Okay, so let's look at how I can check this. So, let me do something else. So if you have a greater than or equal to and a less than or equal to, then you're going to have a solid line. So you need to have both of these written down. Okay, and these should have arrows on them. Remember when we graphed a while back, your lines should have arrows on them, or you will have points taken off. You should have a dotted or a solid line, whichever one is the correct one, or points will be taken off, or it will be counted as wrong. Okay, so make sure that you have this written down somewhere and that it's where you highlight it, whatever you need to do to say, hey, look at me. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to check this problem. And the way you check it is you pick a point that's in the shaded area. So I'm going to pick this point right here, and that is 2, 2. Okay, so I'm going to check it with the point 2, 2. Any point in the area that's shaded. So now I'm going to go back up here, and I'm going to use the original problem. Never use the problem that you changed it to. Okay, always use the original problem in a check. And I'm going to put 2 in for the x and 2 in for the y. So I have 2 times 2 plus 2 is greater than 3. So that's 4 plus 2 is greater than 3. And I get 6 is greater than 3. And yes, that's correct. So my problem checks. And that means it's correct. Okay, so let's go on to example 2. If you want to try this one on your own, you can. I'm not going to tell you you have to because it's good to do it with me. Maybe do one step at a time and then see what I did instead of going through the whole thing. So let's do that. Let's say what I want you to do right now is change this to slope-intercept form. Remember, we're trying to graph it. That's why we're changing it to slope-intercept form. So hit pause and change that to slope-intercept form and then come back. So don't do everything at once. All I want you to do first is change it to slope-intercept form. Okay, so hit pause now. Okay, everybody should be back. So I'm going to subtract 6x. Remember, I'm trying to change this into slope-intercept form. So that gives me negative 2y on this side. And on the other side is negative 6x plus 10. Okay, I'm doing good so far. Now I need my y by itself, so I'm going to divide by 2. And when I do that, I want to divide both of these by 2, right? You have to divide everything by 2. When you divide by a negative, remember, you have to flip your sign. Okay, so we talked about that in the past. If you divide or multiply by negative, then you have to flip your sign. Okay, so then this one, hold on, let me erase this little thing. This side is going to be 3x, and this is going to be minus 5. Okay, did everybody get that? You might have forgotten to flip your sign. That's okay, now you know. Make sure that you have that written in your notes so that you don't forget. Okay, now that I have my equation here, I'm going to graph it. So I need, when I'm drawing my graph, I need my y-intercept to be negative 5. That means my graph needs to go all the way down to a negative 5. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then this one's going to go across like this. Okay, so you see how I did that? I made sure that I got one all the way down to negative 5. Now you can do, you could go all the way to 10 on both sides. If you're not sure where your line's going to end up, just make sure that it's big enough. And if you start working the problem and your graph isn't big enough, then just draw a little bit extra on it, okay? Erase that little arrow right there and just draw your graph bigger. Oops. That's all you need to do. Just make sure that you have enough room. Okay, so now I'm going to graph this. I have my y-intercept is negative 5. So I'm going to put a point at negative 5. And my slope is 3, which means 3 over 1. So I'm going to count up 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 1. So there's my second point. And I'm just going to do it one more time to give me 3 points. So I went up 3 and over 1 again. Now, do I do a solid line or a dotted line? So up here, remember, we have the greater than or less than is a dotted line, and the greater than or equal to and less than or equal to is a solid line. That means that the equal sign means that it's also, points on the line also would check. They would make your check correct. Okay, so this is a less than or equal to. So I'm going to have a solid line. So I'm going to draw a solid line here between all of these. Okay, it's a little crooked there. And it says y is less than. So looking at this line, if I were like a little man walking up this hill, this would be the top of the hill, right? If I was under here, I would not be able to walk up. So that kind of helps you know which one is the top and which one is the bottom. So now I'm going to shade underneath because it's less than. See the less than sign over here? I'm shading underneath. Okay, so if you want to take your pencil and kind of like shade the whole thing, that's okay. It's just hard to see it when you're doing it like that on the iPad. Okay, so that's it. This is my answer right here. It said the problem said to graph it, but I'm also going to check it. So some of your problems on your homework might tell you to check it. Make sure that you look at it. Okay, so I'm going to pick this point right here, which is 2, -3 for my check. Okay, so I'm going to use 2, -3, and I'm going to go back up here and use my original problem, which was oops, sorry, I did not have, that's not my original problem. Okay, I didn't make my arrow go up high enough. My original problem was all the way up here. So I'm going to use 6x minus 2y is greater than or equal to 10. Okay, so now I'm going to put in my point. 6 times 2 minus 2 times -3 is greater than or equal to 10. So 6 times 2 is 12. -2 times -3 is a positive 6. So I'm going to put plus 6. And then 12 plus 6 is 18. So 18 is greater than or equal to 10. So that means my problem checked out. Okay, so this is what you're going to be doing on homework. You're going to be changing to slope-intercept form. You're going to be graphing it after that. So to graph it, you take your y-intercept and you take your slope and you put them on there in points and you draw your lines. Remember this part up here. If it's greater than or less than, you're using a dotted line. If it's greater than equal to or less than or equal to, you're using a solid line. Okay, and you're going to be having a worksheet over this on Thursday, so make sure that you get it when you're working. If you're doing like number 1, after you graph it and you shade it, then check the answer in the back of the book. Do not go on to number 3. Okay, check that answer. If you got it wrong, say, hey, why did I get that wrong? So if you shade it underneath because your answer came out to be less than 5, then say, wait a minute, why did they have it shaded up here? Maybe it's because you need it to flip your sign, okay? You need to figure out with your problem why you would get that wrong. And remember, if you're not sure, then you can always text me. And I might not be available right away, though. That's the only problem. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks.